All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to our monthly YouTube live session. We're in December now, so thank you very much for joining. If this is your first time joining the YouTube live, welcome. And if you guys have been here before, also thanks for coming back. And we actually do these each and every single month. So it looks like I just got the notification on my phone. So we are now live. And thank you very much for joining. In today's session, we're actually going to go over a couple of the top news stories that we've seen in the rideshare industry lately, what's affecting drivers, what's been good, what's been bad, a few of the latest app updates. Don't have a ton there. And then we'll spend most of the time doing live Q&A. So hopefully you guys came ready with your questions. If you're watching live on YouTube right now, you'll be able to join in on the live chat, ask me as many questions as you want, and I'll definitely try to answer as many as possible. We've also got Christian from the Rideshare Guy in the comments, and he'll be answering questions and sharing links to anything that I don't get to or further information. And if you guys are watching this after the fact, you can always leave a comment on YouTube below, and we'll make sure that we get back to it and answer your question that way. So basically, this session is all for you guys, and make sure you stay tuned to the end too. Normally, I give away a little Rideshare Guy swag, but today I've got an extra special present in honor of Christmas. So definitely stay tuned to the end. And it's nothing too amazing. It's just money or a gift card, Amazon gift card instead of the normal swag, but a little bit cooler present this time. So hopefully you guys will stay around for that. So thank you guys for joining. Looks like we've got a few people joining on the YouTube live now. Almost Famous, how's it going? Truthmaker, your driver Mike, good to see you again as always. And yeah, so we'll go ahead and get started. This is a blue curtain behind me, Almost Famous, so you're very observant. And welcome everyone, Asset Marketing. Feel free to let me know where you guys are joining from, and also how long you've been driving for Uber and Lyft. If you guys don't know me that well, I've actually been driving for Uber and Lyft since 2014, which I guess makes me really old in rideshare years. And yeah, and I'm based in Los Angeles, California. So, there hasn't been a ton of big breaking news in the Uber and Lyft drivers over the past month. There's been a couple stories about the Uber 180 days of change ending, and we've got a really good blog post up on the rideshareguy.com where I analyze kind of the 180 days of change. Obviously, the tipping was great, but it seemed like they sort of lost some steam towards the end there. And actually, one of Uber's top product guys, Aaron Schildkraut, who Uberman actually interviewed on his YouTube channel, if you guys haven't checked that out, is actually leaving the company. So it'll be interesting to see if Uber sort of continues on this 180 days of change or what's going on there. So looks like Samuel's joining in right now. He says he's been with Uber since June of 2014. Scott says 2 years in the Detroit market. Gramito says driving for Lyft since July in Philly. So I definitely would be curious to know what your guys' feedback is on that 180 days of change, where Uber sort of made what they called their goal was to make a meaningful improvements to the driver experience, because it seems like we definitely got a lot of experienced drivers in here. Matt from Cincinnati says he's been around for 1.5 years. Steve says that he got his first long distance pickup surcharge last night. So that was actually one of the features of 180 days of change now on every city. They say that it's around 7 to 8 minutes. So if you're getting requests on Uber now that are longer than about 7 to 8 minutes, they consider that a long pickup, and you'll start getting paid after that 7 or 8 minute point just for driving to the passenger. So I've heard that that's actually been a really positive feature in places that are more rural markets or more spread out. I haven't noticed it as much here in Los Angeles since so many of the requests are so tight and so close, but that's definitely some good feedback that we've been hearing from other drivers. Jay-Z says he's been driving for 6 months and loving it thanks to the support from you guys. So Jay-Z, thanks for coming on. And Clark has been 3.5 years driving in San Luis Obispo. So welcome, Clark. That's awesome. So yeah, so that was some of the news. There's also some news on this Waymo case, which you guys may be interested in, where Uber is basically being sued by Waymo, and Waymo is saying that they stole this engineer. This big explosive letter came out and basically saying that Uber's doing all this shady stuff. But I think at this point, drivers are probably used to it. Someone actually applied for a credit card in my name the other day, and I don't know if it was because of the Uber hack or what. So that's definitely something that you guys may want to keep an eye on. We wrote an article about this. The Uber was hacked and some driver information was compromised. Luckily, I have a free credit monitoring service from AAA and also one from Credit Sesame, and it notified me that a new inquiry was on my credit report. So I contacted Chase, and they actually removed it and got it off my inquiry report. So definitely, make sure that you guys take a look at that. Romeo says, what do you think about the 180 days of change? And if you guys are actually interested in my full take on the 180 days of change, we've got a blog post on the rideshareguy.com where I basically graded it. And overall, I gave them a B-. You can go and see how I came to that grade for Uber on their 180 days of change. It's definitely a step in the right direction. They did a lot, so you have to give them some credit for adding the tip option, which I thought they would never do, and making some of these small changes. But there's areas like Uber Pool and ratings where I think they really just need to blow it up and start over because they're so messed up. And of course, the one big thing that they didn't address in the 180 days of change is higher rates. And I've got a really good a bonus video coming out on Saturday on the YouTube channel that you guys definitely want to stay tuned for with Uberman, where we actually discuss the full 180 days of change. And you guys can actually go ahead and take a look at my thoughts there. So definitely check that out. And yeah, if you guys are having any problems with the connections, whether it's audio, video, I should be coming in clear right now. So just feel free to refresh, whether you're on mobile or whether you're on, desktop. Truthmaker says, did the show start? Yes, it did. I'm talking right now. So if you guys are having trouble, feel free to just refresh your window there and you should be able to see me no problem. So that's about it for sort of the top news updates that I've seen on my end. Just a quick personal note, I actually have a book that's going to be coming out in the spring of 2018 that I submitted this week and is gone for publication. So it's going to be called the Rideshare Guide, Everything You Need to Know About Driving for Uber and Lyft. So that's a little heads up for you guys. That's the first time I've announced it. So a little inside information for you guys. So definitely stay tuned for that. It looks like we've got some more people chiming in. Glenn says, 1.5 years, 6,000 rides in Los Angeles, 4.9 star rating. Your channel helped me achieve that. So that's awesome, Glenn. I love to hear that type of feedback. Definitely helping people is a big part of this channel. And that's what we're going to do today on this live. So, with that sort of being said, we're kind of done with the intro. I don't think there were a ton of other app updates. I saw a couple people mention Mystro. Bob says he's been using Mystro for the last 3 weeks with an Ellipsis 8 tablet and it's working A-okay. I saw Mystro released a couple new features. They have this trip ignore override voice control feature that's kind of cool. So definitely check out that if you guys haven't already. And yeah, so I think we'll go ahead and get started. If you guys have questions, feel free to hit me right now. If you're watching live, you can join in on the live chat and get all those questions going. I'll try to answer as many as possible. And if you guys are watching afterwards on YouTube or Facebook or something like that, you can always leave a comment or question on YouTube, and we'll make sure to respond to the question there. So let's see. Jay says, what vacuum do you recommend? Now, what I would actually say to that is before you go out and buy a vacuum, think about what is causing you to use the vacuum, right? I actually recommend first and foremost some really good durable rubber mat. So what's the popular brand? WeatherTech is a really popular, kind of expensive brand, but they're really solid because when you have a bunch of passengers coming in and out of your car, you would think like if you have to vacuum, you'll have to vacuum like every hour or two. It's kind of annoying because so much dirt and especially in the winter, a lot of crap will get tracked into your car. I actually prefer a rubber mat because you can just shake that out really easily and then, maybe only vacuum at the end of every day or every few days or every week if you don't drive that much. So that's sort of what I would recommend to start with, maybe even before a vacuum. It looks like we've got a couple people chiming in. Almost Famous says Hoover vacuums. I honestly went on Amazon. I think it's one of the top products that we recommended in a blog post the other day. And I bought probably the top rated vacuum on Amazon. If you guys do want to use our affiliate link, it's at the rideshareguy.com/Amazon. Quick little plug there for all your Christmas shopping, since we actually get a commission, a very small commission, but of anything that you buy on Amazon if you use our affiliate link first. But it looks like we got a bunch of people using WeatherTech, Almost Famous, Sleeping Elephant, and I think that WeatherTech is, definitely one of the top brands, but for the most part, if, you don't want to spend that much on the mats, just something rubber that's easy to shake out because, I've noticed that vacuums, I have a handheld vacuum that I use, but I've noticed that over time, the battery has gotten really weak and you have to consistently and always constantly charge it. So I wouldn't think that it's sort of the be all, end all solution right there. Elisa says, I flip my mats upside down. That's definitely one solution. I do that with my couch cushions sometime when they get dirty. Your driver Mike, who's got a great YouTube channel, says WeatherTech here as well. So definitely make sure you check that out. Looks like we've actually got a little special guest in the comments right now. I see Uberman has joined. So Uberman, thanks for joining the live stream. And gracing us with your presence. I already mentioned we've got a special bonus video coming out on Saturday between me and Uberman. Christian says, I drive without a vacuum or WeatherTech, just standard mats and would beat them in the morning really hard. So that's definitely a solution right there. So I think enough talk about mats right there. Uberman, wow, $10 contribution. Thank you very much. That's awesome. Looks like you guys can actually, I don't know exactly how it works, to be honest, but there's some way where you can donate money to the channel and then your comment comes into me and I can't really ignore it. So Uberman just donated $10 but didn't say anything. So I'm assuming, thank you for that, Uberman. That's awesome. And it looks like Sleeping Elephant says, I did 2 Uberpool extra pickups for this super chat. So Sleeping Elephant just donated $2 and looks like they donated for those Uberpool rides. Yeah, so it's called super chat, I believe is what it's called. And then that way I have to see your question and I have to answer you. So that's definitely a good way to get your question seen. And let's see, Truthmaker says Scotch tape roller for fast clean. That's a good tip. And let's see, EB, I'm not sure what that question means. Oscar says, Harry got tip. Yep, I got my first tip, on my YouTube live today. So that's awesome. Okay, I've got a good question right here that I like. SD Ute fan says, how long do I hang on to lost stuff that I reported? So I think, I actually saw your question earlier come in. I think you were referring to a passenger left a couple bottles of alcohol in your car, and then, you reported it to Uber and you never heard from them. There's not a great policy or rules around this, but I would say that it sort of depends, right? If it's like a diamond ring or an engagement ring, that's probably a situation where I'm going to hold on to it a little bit longer because, you could imagine if you were in that situation and you lost something super valuable, you would really do everything you can. You would want someone to do everything they can to return it to you, right? And it may just be that this person didn't know that they lost it in Uber or Lyft, and they're still, it might take them a week or so to realize. So if it's something of really valuable or really sentimental, I would probably hold on to it longer. But if it's something simple, like someone left like 2 bottles of vodka or a 12-pack of beer in your car, honestly, at that point, I might give it 24 to 48 hours. But after that, you're not a storage locker for people. So sort of do what you think is right for the situation, do what's reasonable. And then I think at that point, you can sort of, keep it yourself or do whatever you have to do. So Tom just donated $5 via the super chat, so that's awesome. Thank you very much, Tom. I really appreciate that. And I think I might have to give a little kickback to Uberman because he seems to have started the wave of people donating, which is awesome. So SD Ute fan, hopefully that answers your question. I'd be curious to know how other people are handling the situation. Truthmaker says, after 24 hours, bottoms up. And yeah, to be honest, I kind of agree. Joseph says, what's the strategy for New Year's Eve, New Year's Day? So that's a great question. You've probably seen that, Uber and Lyft, they're already starting to send out emails about, hey, New Year's is going to be busy, and typically New Year's and Thanksgiving, and they also say Thanksgiving, the night before Thanksgiving, but New Year's is typically one of the biggest nights of the year as far as passenger demand. Now, conversely, especially what we've seen in the past, is it also means that there are a lot of drivers out there, right? A lot of those part-time drivers that don't drive that often, or people that are, trying to maximize their profits. Hey, you can't really blame them, right? They come out on New Year's Eve. And so I think that typically what we've seen is New Year's Eve gets busiest after midnight. So from about 12 to 3 or 4 a.m., sort of depending on your area. Here in California, the bars close at 2 a.m. So you can see it's sort of like 12 to 3 or 4. In other places, it might be shifted a little later if the bars get out at 3 or 4 a.m. But for the most part, what I think I would do is kind of, just think about kind of keep an eye on the surge. Typically what we see on New Year's Eve is earlier in the day, it's actually not that busy because there's a lot of drivers out. So like around 8, 7, 8, 9 p.m., there are a lot of drivers out, and oftentimes a lot of people give up. So I think the move to go is, if you are going to drive on New Year's Eve, is to definitely make sure that you're okay with staying up late and waiting it out, because I think that's when we see, kind of the 5, the 6, the 7x, surges. So, I'd be curious to know what type of surge you guys saw last year. I know that in some places it got up pretty high, 5, 6, 7, and then Joseph has a good tip: 5 to 8 a.m. New Year's Day. Which we like to call the walk of shame hours. And this is actually a really good strategy. I feel like, let's say you don't want to drive on New Year's Eve, right? Let's say you want to spend time with your family, or, maybe I'm not a big drinker anymore, at least. But let's say you actually want to, hang with your family or friends, or just take it easier, not even deal with the madness, right? A really good strategy is, imagine all those drivers that are staying out late. And a lot of people, end up at someone else's house. That's why we call it the walk of shame rides. But in the morning, from about 5 to 8, or 8 a.m. or 9, 10 a.m., there's no traffic. There's not a lot of drivers out either, because everyone was out late the night before, and a lot of passengers may be at other people's homes and need a ride home, or maybe they couldn't afford, getting home on the surge prices. So that's definitely a good opportunity, especially on New Year's Day. So I saw a couple more super chats come in. So thank you again. Uberman looks like you got another $5, and someone, Uberman says, my tip: stay away from downtown, hit the suburbs. And that's definitely a good tip right there. The $5, but also the tip from Uberman. Especially think about the patterns of your city, right? On New Year's Eve, right? A lot of people that maybe don't normally go out are going to be heading downtown, right? They're going to be going to the busy areas. So where are they going to be coming from? They may be coming from the suburbs. So you might be able to make good money earlier on in the night from the suburbs all the way downtown. And maybe once you get downtown, you flip that app off, log off, drive away from downtown, because that's where a lot of people are going to be ending up, and go back to the suburbs. I've sort of used that strategy pretty effectively on holidays, where, once you drop people off, it might be madness, it might be crazy. Get away from that area, go a little bit further away, and then you can actually get rides and kind of sort of shuttle and ferry people back in. So that's definitely a good strategy right there. But it's definitely an opportunity. Mark was the other one who donated $5 via the super chat. So big thanks to Mark for that. I'm making bank right now. I might not even have to drive on New Year's. And Asset Marketing says house parties are slamming on New Year's Eve. That's a good tip. And I think in general, what this kind of boils down to, what we've seen in the past is, on New Year's Eve, like 3-4 years ago, you could just go out and drive and make a ton of money because there weren't as many drivers. Now, though, we have a lot of part-time drivers. We have a lot of people that come out for the big holidays because they know in the past that, hey, maybe there's been big surge pricing or something like that. So definitely something to keep in mind. Looks like we've got a lot of savvy drivers in here. Joseph says, agree 100%. Suburbs, no inner city. Almost Famous says, the walk of shame. It's a beautiful thing for Uber and Lyft drivers. And Mark says, but the bowl games are on New Year's Day. Personally, I TiVo everything, or I use my DVR to record even sports, just because you can get through them way faster. So I would drive when it's busy, and then record all the football games or whatever you want to watch, because I'm a big football fan too. And then you can watch them when you get home and have a couple of $100 extra in your pocket maybe. So that's what I would do there. Let's see. It looks like Meg says, I drove New Year's Eve till about 10 p.m. and got up early for New Year's. So yeah, definitely some good strategies around, all of New Year's. Another good question here: should I drive for Uber or Lyft on New Year's Eve? And my answer would be, why not both, right? Because unless you're getting some type of special promotion that's gonna, trap you on one app or the other, this is actually a good time where, not a lot of drivers that we've talked to that are using Mystro use it in a way where you can actually filter out requests. So for example, when it's really busy, I actually filter out anything that's above 3 to 5 minutes away. Let's say, because if it's really busy and it's surge pricing, you could still get a request that's 10 or 12 minutes away. If you ignore that request though, it's a good chance that you might get another request that's 2 to 3 minutes away, right? And now you just saved yourself 7 minutes of drive time. And the reason why that's so important, especially during surge, is because you can now do more rides, right? And that, obviously at 2, 3, 4x the prices, you're actually losing a lot of money by that unpaid mileage. So that unpaid time, or that waiting time, becomes a lot more costly, really. So that's definitely a strategy there. It looks like Rideshare Genius. We've got Ezra from Rideshare Genius joined. He just donated $20. Wow, I'm really killing it tonight on the super chat. So thank you guys very much. And he says, congrats on Rideshare Guy Junior news. So yeah, if you guys don't follow me on Facebook, I actually announced that we've got a little Rideshare Guy Junior coming. I'm trying to see if I have a picture. No, I don't think I have a picture of him coming, but you know what a baby in a ultrasound looks like. I'm sure you guys have seen a picture. It looks like a little alien. So we've got a little alien coming, and baby boy due January 18th. So that's really exciting news. I'm super excited about that. Obviously, that'll be my first child between me with me and my wife. So super exciting news. So thank you very much to Rideshare Genius for that quick little shout out and the tip. And if you guys haven't checked out his channel, definitely recommend. He's got a tip right here. Happy holidays to all. My New Year's Eve tip: evaluate Uber and Lyft incentives ahead of time. Once on the road, see how demand is and decide if it's better to chase incentives or surge, use both apps. And that's actually perfect advice that kind of goes with the question that was just asked. You don't have to make the decision right now, right? See what offers are coming in. And this is really what Ezra at Rideshare Genius is saying, right? He's a big proponent of seeing which offers you're getting. Let Uber and Lyft compete for your business. You guys have to understand, on New Year's Eve, Uber and Lyft need you more as a driver than you need them, right? So you have to understand that you have power on these nights. When you do have power, see what's better, see where you're going to make more money. What I've found is typically, if you're just going to see a normal surge, most passengers, Uber has dominant market share, right? So most passengers default to Uber. They look at Uber app first. And so I've found that during times, Uber tends to surge higher than Lyft's prime time, but that's not always the case, and it depends on the area. So that's sort of my general tip, but definitely some good advice there from Rideshare Genius. And Uberman says, exciting news on the baby. Congratulations. Yeah, thank you guys. I'm super excited about that. And Mark says, hold out for January 29th. It's a much better birthday. So we'll see when the baby is due. But my birthday is January 9th. So it'll definitely be cool that we're in the same month. SD Ute fan says, can you top $20? Anyone? I really like where this is headed. I think the super chat Uberman seems to, I might have to kick him back $5 later, because it seems to really be encouraging everyone to contribute there. So awesome. That's really generous of you guys. I'm really appreciative of that. So Arturo says, what are the timeouts now? I'm not sure what you're referring to there. You might be referring to the acceptance rate thing, but feel free to elaborate and I'll answer that later. Steve says, do you think Lyft will follow suit with long distance pickups? So, I don't think, Lyft doesn't have this feature yet where basically, I think you're referring to either the long trip notifications, which I think Lyft added, or you might be referring to the fact that Uber now pays, you're probably referring to the fact that Uber now pays drivers when you have to travel a long distance over 7 or 8 minutes. They start paying you for miles and times, which is a really great feature especially for drivers in smaller areas. And yes, the answer to your question is yes. I do think Lyft is going to follow suit on this feature eventually. And Uberman actually had a great video that we shared over on our Maximum Ride Sharing Profits, which is my video training course blog. We actually shared this post today on the blog. And Uberman talked about all of these new Lyft updates that they're making. And, when I watched his video, I said to myself, hey, this seems a little familiar, Uber and Lyft, Uber's had this big 180 days of change campaign, and it seems like Lyft is starting to copy a lot of the features. Uber is copying a lot of the Lyft driver friendly features. So I think ultimately what we're going to see is Uber and Lyft, they understand that they need to make a lot of changes to the driver experience, and they're slowly making a lot of these over time, basically just copying each other. But hopefully we'll start to see some really innovative stuff from these companies. But yeah, for the most part, I think if you see something that's good on Uber for drivers, you'll probably see it on Lyft and vice versa. So definitely something to keep your eye on. And Primitive Attention says, will you name your baby Uber or Lyft? And the answer is no. Actually, we already have the baby's name picked out. It's going to be George Harry. So in my name is actually Harry George Campbell, and in my family we have a tradition where we alternate the firstborn son. So my baby will be George Harry Campbell. My dad's name is George Harry Campbell. My granddad's name is Harry George Campbell, and it actually goes back all the way like 5 or 6 generations. So quick little trivia for you guys about the Campbell family. So that's kind of cool. But anyways, back to the important stuff. So let's see. Uberman says, Uber, no. Someone must ask a question about driving in multiple markets. Yeah, with Uber, you can't drive in outside of your state. So you can get requests in your state and actually drop off outside of the state, but you can't pick up in other states for the most part. I think there are a couple East Coast places where the states are really close to each other and you can do it there, like the Virginia market or something like that. But with Lyft, actually, you can drive and accept requests in other states. So definitely something to keep in mind. And no, I said I won't be naming my baby that. Okay. Let's see. Scott says, will we ever see the platform filter with Lyft? And I think same thing, the answer is probably similar. Uber has this cool feature where you can now, if you have an Uber X or Select or Uber Eats, you can opt in or out. You can't opt out of Uber Pool yet, but I don't know if they'll add that feature, but I definitely would like them to. And I think that Lyft will definitely add that soon. So if you guys haven't seen that already, I'm sure they will. And SD Ute fan says, when I have both apps up, it's about 9 Uber rides to every 1 Lyft ride. And that's a good point. It definitely depends on your market. But one thing I've found is for a lot of drivers who actually sit down and really give Lyft a good shot, maybe because they're going for power driver bonus, or maybe just because they're pissed at Uber, a lot of times you can actually get more Lyft rides than you might imagine. But it takes some time to sort of get into that groove and really dedicate yourself. I think a lot of drivers that are doing Uber and Lyft, they sort of just take whatever request comes in first, right? And think about it. If you're getting a bunch of Uber requests, maybe you're a little pickier with your Uber requests, right? Maybe you say, hey, if it's only, maybe you're in like a medium-sized market and you say, hey, if it's 7 or 8 minutes or further, I'm not going to take that Uber request. And maybe you start to see that you're getting more Lyft requests. So I wouldn't automatically, say, oh, I always get more Uber than Lyft, but definitely that's something to keep in mind. And, some drivers also say that Lyft is the more hipster option. So you got to hang out in the more hipster places, the hipster bars, the hipster restaurants, and stuff like that to check out. So looks like Rideshare Genius's super chat. Now that $20 super chat stays up there for a long time, so I can still see it up there. So thanks for that contribution. That's really awesome. Sleeping Elephant says, name your kid Tupac Shakur. That would actually be kind of funny. Mark says you can basically opt out of Uber Pool with Mystro, and that's a great point. So that's one of the settings that I use. If I'm not on an Uber Quest bonus, which is, do 20 trips and get $90, which, not every market has, but if I'm not going for one of those bonuses, I will I always use Mystro to actually opt out of Uber Pool, because I don't see any reason or incentive to do Uber Pool unless I'm getting a bonus for it. One of the changes of the Uber 180 days of change is they're now paying about $1 for that second pickup extra. So I'd be curious to know. I think for the most part, drivers have said this isn't enough, but I've definitely heard from some drivers who said that, hey, now that I get that extra $1 on second Uber Pool pickup, it's worth it for me. Personally, I still don't think it is, but I'd be curious to know what you guys say. And Meg says, unless it's super slow, I take all requests. So yeah, definitely depending on your market. In the smaller markets or in markets where ride requests aren't as frequent, sometimes you don't have a lot of choice, right? You have to take all the requests. So that Uber long trip payment feature, I don't know exactly what it's called, but whatever that feature is that Uber added is definitely something that you can take advantage. SD Ute fan says, shut out Lyft for a couple weeks and they'll offer a stupid bonus. So that's actually a good point. That doesn't apply just to Lyft. That applies to Uber and Lyft. One thing that we've been seeing, and I've been trying to think about the best way to do an article or a video about it without sort of making it too anecdotal, but we've definitely noticed and heard from a lot of readers, and I've experienced this myself because I didn't drive for Uber for 2 weeks, and I got a bonus offer from them in the LA market that was do 20 trips and get $90 bonus. And I was like, wait, what? That's like $5 a trip bonus. So of course I did it, or 4.5, whatever it is. I can't do math. So one thing we found is that if you actually, from week to week, let's say you take a week off of Uber or take a week off of Lyft, they might come back and say, hey, we miss you, right? We want to offer you this big bonus. So if you are in a market that offers bonuses, and sometimes even if you're in a market that's not, That's another great reason. Let's say you mainly drive for Uber and you're not seeing the great bonuses. You can always try driving for Lyft exclusively for a week, and you might see that Uber now offers you a better bonus. And look, these algorithms that these companies use are not that smart. They need you as a driver. But if you're always working for them, think about it, right? They don't have a lot of incentive to offer you a big bonus if you're going to work for them anyways. So definitely that's something to keep in mind. And, that's why I think it's one of the really, really beneficial. If you guys are in a solid Facebook group, or if you have like a network of about 5 to 10 drivers who are kind of strategic, just like you, and really thinking about these things. I mean, there's so many of these easy things that you can do where you can basically just take a week off of Uber, go do Lyft exclusively, and then you make $100 extra next week just for maybe a better bonus offer, right? There's a lot of these little things that you can do, which is, frankly, a little bit of work sometimes, but you can really start taking advantage of, some of these offers. Rideshare Genius, I know he's in the LA market. He says, I got a 20 for $120 offer from Uber last week. SD Ute fan says, I got $500 for 40 rides and did it really quick at UC San Diego. So go Tritons. I went to UCSD, and so did Christian Perea in the comments. Mark says, Lyft doesn't take as much as Uber. Lyft usually only takes 25%. And, I think honestly, the companies take about the same percentage. But if you're hitting power driver bonus on Lyft, for example, you definitely are going to get a lot of that commission back. We've got a lot of great content on the YouTube channel. We've got Joe contributing videos now, and he's in the Minneapolis market. And he's got some great content on how he's been able to hit the power driver bonus every single week for like almost the past year, or tries to do it every single week. So definitely something to keep in mind. Mark says Uber Eats sucks. I haven't done it in a while, but yeah. And let's see. Gerald said, we got a couple good questions coming in. So let's take a quick break. But thank you guys for joining. Just if you want to say thank you. If this is your first time joining our YouTube Lives, we actually do these every single month. And we had a couple requests to do it on the same. We always do it on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Pacific. And we had a couple requests to do it on the same week every month. So that's definitely something that we'll look into. If you guys are watching this after the fact on YouTube, feel free, you can still leave a comment below and we'll respond to you. But the best way to get notified of these YouTube live sessions is to actually subscribe to our channel. And then also subscribe to our email list at therideshareguy.com/email. And there we send out notifications. We send out emails basically when we're going to go live. And then you can also receive notifications through YouTube when we're going to go live. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. We'll go ahead for another 20 or 30 minutes right now and keep answering questions. These are great questions. Keep them coming in. I definitely like the conversation. Everyone so far is pretty civil. I don't think we've had to ban anyone, or Christian hasn't had to put anyone in timeout yet. So that's always awesome. And definitely want to keep providing a ton of value to you guys and seeing how much help we can give you. We've got a bunch of super chats coming in, which is awesome. So I feel like I'm making a ton of money right now too somehow from doing these, which is totally not why I do these. But hey, if you guys want to pay me to do these, I will gladly accept. All right, cool. So, and then of course, stay tuned to the end. We're going to give away a $50 Amazon e-gift card at the end in honor of Christmas. So definitely stay tuned to the end. And I'll let you know how you guys can win that. So I saw a couple good questions coming in. Mark says, with all the super chat tips you should do this weekly. Yeah, and I think if I can get up some more super chat tips, I will do this every week because I can make a bunch of money. So. And let's see, Roger says, sorry, you're not coming through without many stops. I'll catch the replay. So if you guys are having trouble, just make sure that you refresh the stream because it should be pretty clear right now. Jeff says, what do you think about Uber Eats and car smells? So, this is one of the reasons why I'm not a big fan of doing delivery sort of at the same time as rideshare, like Uber Eats, for example, right? If you guys are out there doing Uber X and Uber Eats at the same time, you could go get a McDonald's order, which is, a pretty popular restaurant on Uber Eats, and a lot of requests come in for fast food, and it might stink up your car. And then the next passenger that gets in smells like a cheeseburger and fries. And honestly, if I was an Uber passenger, that would probably make me want to throw up. I would not want to smell that, on my way to work or on my way to the airport or something like that. So I'm not a big fan of sort of alternating it in that manner. But let's say during lunch, maybe, for example, you want to go out and do a bunch of Uber Eats trips. You can do that, and you might rack up some smells in your car, but you might have time to air it out, or maybe you're going to take a break after. So if you are doing that sort of alternating thing, definitely make sure that you have some type of either air freshener or you roll with the windows down. I'm here in California, so I don't have to worry about inclement weather and snow and rain for the most part. So whenever I do delivery, and I plan on doing rideshare sort of after, or shortly after, I definitely do that. Because I mean, if you guys have ever noticed, you take fast food home, and even the next day when you open your car, if you don't let that thing air out, it might smell a little. So that's definitely something that I think for you guys to be aware of. And if you are seeing your ratings drop or anything like that, and since you've added Uber Eats, that could definitely be a potential cause. And let's see, Gerald says, why doesn't Uber and Lyft allow riders that live in an apartment complex put in their apartment number for pickup? So that's definitely, so we've got a video about how to handle this situation, especially here in Southern California. There are a ton of these mega apartment buildings and complexes. And what I'll do is when I see the request come in, you always, if you're not using Mystro or something like that, you have time to study the request. You can see where this passenger is. So let's say I'm driving to a passenger, I'm at a red light. I'll actually go ahead and look at the passenger pickup location. I don't wait until I arrive to see, oh crap, they're in a big apartment complex. I look it up ahead of time. And if it's an area where I've done a pickup before, or on Google Maps, you can usually see there's a big grayed out area, and that signifies that they're in a mall or that they're in an apartment complex, somewhere where there isn't a designated Uber pickup zone, right? I proactively might send a text and say, hey, I'm going to be entering from here. Are you going to be at the front? Or, sort of give them some information, or even call them. Because if you arrive at their destination and they're sort of not there and waiting, it might take you a bunch of time to figure out where they are. I mean, I guess the other strategy that some drivers use, which is maybe a little more questionable, is you arrive, and if they're not there after 5 minutes, you just go ahead and cancel the ride and charge them a cancellation fee. So, I mean, that's definitely one of the nice things that about that timer now, is you can sort of take advantage of it. But yeah, I mean, that's definitely something that you can see. Let's see, Techno Nita says, how do you opt out of Uber Eats? So you should be able to select your preferences. I can't remember what the option is in the Uber driver app, but you can definitely opt out of Uber Eats if you don't want to do it. Mark says, my 10-year-old daughter Paige is watching with me, and she wants to say hi. Hey, Paige, how's it going? Thanks for joining. This is probably really boring for you, but cool that you're spending time with your dad. And Barbara says, I just moved from Baltimore to Philadelphia Market. Do a lot of people use Mystro who work for both Lyft and Uber? I would say that honestly, I think it's a no-brainer if you're doing Lyft and Uber to use Mystro. It is a paid app, but I mean, if you think about it, if it gets you 1 or 2 more trips per month, it pays for itself right there. And also just a safety component. I think Mystro just makes it so much safer. I mean, in the past, when I had to drive for Uber and Lyft manually, I'd be driving down the street at 35 miles an hour. I get an Uber request. I have to tap to accept it. And while I'm driving, I have to quickly double tap, switch to the Lyft app, log off, switch back to Uber. And this is all while I'm driving, which is super unsafe. You get into one accident and that might cost you thousands of dollars and a ton of lost income, and, maybe even medical bills and things like that. So definitely something that I think is a no-brainer. Gromito says, does Uber Eats have the strict requirements on type of car? And the answer is no. So that's the nice thing about delivery, is that, if you don't have a newer car, right, that meets all of UberX requirements, you can actually still do Uber Eats and Postmates and DoorDash with a 2-door car or an older car, right? There are a lot less stringent requirements for the delivery services. So that's definitely something that's nice. And especially if you live in a place where you can get by on a scooter or a bike, that obviously, reduces your cost. Because that's one of the downsides, of driving rideshare. You have this vehicle, especially if you have to have a nice new vehicle, that's going to cost you money and a lot of wear and tear on your car. So definitely something to keep in mind. East Sween says, Mystro now has voice commands. Yeah, so I mentioned that. That's definitely a cool feature that you guys can check out. I see a lot of questions coming in. Mystro on iOS. So I've got a video about this coming out soon. But in short, for the most part, Mystro is working on, Mystro right now, the app is only for Android. They're working on getting this app over to iOS. But the problem is that Mystro uses the accessibility options in order to basically have that functionality that allows you to drive for Uber and Lyft and to automatically log you on and see what trips are coming in. And basically the way, I'm not a tech guy, but the way that Mystro works, that the methods they use are not approved by Apple. So they can't get their app into the App Store as it is now. If they end up getting a direct integration with another company, like for example, I know they're adding Postmates right now, so that's going to be super cool in the future. You're actually going to be able to do Uber, Lyft, and Postmates maybe all at the same time. Maybe during lunch, for example, when Postmates, when rideshare tends to be really slow, maybe you now have the option to do Postmates deliveries. So Mystro is adding that functionality, but basically, long story short, as far as it coming to iOS, they're going to need some type of partnership or direct integration with one of these companies, which, to be honest, I think might happen because there's just so much incentive for these companies to work with Mystro. And as you guys know, I'm a big fan of Mystro, the company, and I think it really helps drivers. So long story short, not coming to iPhone anytime super soon, but we do know of some drivers who have actually bought an Android, and I believe you have to run 7.0 or higher, and they tether it to their iPhone. Or some drivers have told me they've actually switched completely from iPhone to Android just so they could use Mystro. So, there's some options for you there, and you guys can definitely check that out. So Frank says, I have a seeing eye dog. Can I bring him with me when I drive for Uber? I kind of need him for turns and lights. I'm assuming you're joking, but I believe you actually can drive with a service dog. Obviously passengers can bring service dogs on Uber and Lyft, and as long as they're a true service animal, you have to accept them. But I have actually seen and heard of drivers doing the same thing because, sort of the same rules that apply to passengers. Uber can't say that you can't have a dog. I actually had an Uber driver the other night who, I don't think it was a service animal, but it was his little Chihuahua, and he had a 4.9 star rating. So, but the way he did it, I got into the car and he said, "Hey, this is my little puppy, I don't know, Alejandra or whatever the puppy's name was. That's not a dog's name, but whatever the dog's name was." He said, "Oh, this is a little my puppy. Hope you don't mind." It was like kind of cute. It was a little puppy that was in the car with us, and it was kind of cool actually. And he like jumped in the back seat. So I definitely have seen it done, and I would assume that sort of the same American Disabilities Act rules and laws that apply to passengers also apply to drivers. So definitely something that you can keep in mind. Gromito says, so I can use my beater for eats and don't stink up the nice car. And frankly, yeah, I mean, that's one of the nice things about doing delivery. We work with a bunch of delivery companies, DoorDash, Postmates. There's also Caviar, which we've got some good articles on the blog. So there's definitely options, Amazon Flex. And, so definitely something that you should keep in mind for delivery if you don't want to put all the miles on your car. Because that's the other nice thing about delivering food and packages is that you don't put as many miles on your car. There's more time waiting at the restaurant and putting in orders and things like that. So definitely a strategy. Mark says that his daughter is loving the YouTube live. She had customized his directions on Waze for him to make the passengers laugh. So I'm assuming you changed the voice or something like that. So that's pretty cool. And let's see, Ryan says, you always need to find a parking spot for pickups and drop-offs. I'm assuming you're referring to delivery. And yes, you do. Most places, most restaurants, if you go to like a California Pizza Kitchen or sort of like a TGI Fridays type chain, they usually have dedicated to-go spots, not for Uber and Lyft drivers, but just in general for customers picking up orders. So that's something that you'll sort of start to develop. Just like rideshare, there's some strategy that goes into delivery. You have to start seeing, hey, I'm getting this order. If it's from a place where I know there's no parking, it's a huge hassle to park, maybe that's an order that you ignore. Rideshare Genius has some good videos about this on his channel, and he's done a couple blog posts for us about basically which delivery trips should you accept. So these are all the things that you kind of want to think about going into delivery. Technonita says, I usually park where I can legally, but every once in a while I have to park illegally. And that's a good point. I've parked illegally. I probably wouldn't park illegally and double park on a huge street that's going to back up traffic. But if you're in an area, you guys sort of know the areas where it's kind of okay to double park, and obviously it's still sort of technically illegal, but of course it happens. So definitely something to keep in mind. I know Caviar too, I don't know if they still have it, but they used to have a cool option where if you did a certain number of deliveries, they would actually cover you if you got a parking ticket, because they know that eventually you're going to get one, right? So let's see, David says, do you start Uber and Lyft apps and then fire up Mystro? So the way that Mystro works is you actually need to have the apps downloaded and be sort of, sign in once with Uber and Lyft, basically, to the Uber and Lyft driver apps. And then but you don't have to be online. So you actually log on to Mystro. And once you've downloaded the Uber and Lyft apps and signed in at least once, now going forward in the future, all you need to do is click one button on Mystro. It automatically logs you on to Uber and Lyft driver apps. And then from there, it's basically all hands-free. So pretty cool little options there. So hopefully that explains it. And Eski Ute fan says, I use no voice for navigation. Lots of people like the quiet and thank me for it. This is a great tip that not a lot of drivers realize, because, navigation and sort of getting passengers to their destination, following GPS is actually the #1 complaint from riders for low ratings. So if you guys are seeing that you're struggling with low ratings or you're getting low ratings, there's a good bet that it has something to do with navigation or something to do with what you're not doing with navigation, right? And there are a lot of little things. One little thing that I found is a lot of passengers actually don't like hearing turn-by-turn navigation, right? They're sitting in the back. It's peaceful. I've been in drivers' cars, as a passenger, and they have it blaring. And it's like, make a left turn, right? Super loud. All right, sorry, I didn't mean to yell in the mic, so hopefully I didn't wake up your kids. But, these drivers will have it playing super loud. And I understand why, but at the same time, it's not the greatest experience for a passenger. So a good little solution for that is just to hook a little Bluetooth in your ear and then sync that to your phone. That's also a nice tip too, because sometimes, I like to get out of the car and stretch in between rides, and that way you can still hear the pings. Or if you use Mystro again, it's actually another good use case. You guys can tell I love Mystro because now I don't have to actually do that anymore. Now Mystro, I'll get out in between rides and stretch and do things like that, walk around the car, go for a quick walk, and I just leave my phone right there on the dash. Mystro auto accept those trips. But Bluetooth, it's a good tip there, so that way you don't have to have your passengers listening to this super loud basically voice, right? And OKC Party says, I use a Bluetooth earpiece. Bob says, I'm using an earpiece. So Clark says, I have my nav in my Bluetooth ear. So definitely a lot of people using that sort of tip. But I will say I take a lot of Uber rides myself, to talk to drivers and just see what other drivers are doing. And most drivers have the navigation pretty loud. And, I could see it being kind of annoying for passengers. So imagine you're a driver who isn't doing that. That probably helps you stand out from the competition in a really easy way. So definitely something to keep in mind. Mario says, in some case, you can be so efficient driving that the rider would actually think your navigation is off. And, to be honest, I actually don't use sound. So, I've practiced, and I've practiced this, which sounds kind of funny, practice driving. But, I can look down at the map, and when it says turn left in a quarter mile, I can kind of approximate, okay, I'm going 30 miles an hour. I know that that'll take me about a minute to go a half mile. I know that'll take me about 2 minutes to go a quarter mile, right? So I sort of have these, little cues in my head. And then I think if you really know your city, you guys have probably realized a lot of the pickups and a lot of the drop-offs are at the same places over and over, right? Even if you're in a big city, a lot of people like going to the specific bar area or the specific bars or specific restaurants or specific parts of town. And if you kind of understand your city, you want to know the basic, what's north, what's south, what's east, what's west, right? You're not waiting around for navigation. You still use it as an aid, use navigation as a guide, but it shouldn't be a crutch. And that's really the best tip that I can give you guys there, because, frankly, it's a little confusing. It's a little tough to get used to. And I think a lot of drivers, I've been in the car with driver and they say, oh, this stupid navigation is acting up. And I think to myself, no, you just missed the turn. That's why, it's now telling you to go right instead of left, right? So I think that definitely it's a little more complex than it seems. Like with anything, it takes a little bit of practice. So definitely something to keep in mind there. Let's see. Mike says, think like a London cabbie. That's a good tip. And Guy says, has anyone ever been deactivated for not accepting enough Lyft requests? I keep getting requests 20 to 30 minutes away, so tired of it. And now this is one of the biggest complaints that we hear about Lyft. In the smaller to mid-sized markets, Lyft tends to send drivers requests that are 20 to 30 minutes away, which is super annoying because you don't get paid for that extra, that long pickup, basically, like you now do on Uber. And there's no, you could get there and they might be going around the block for a minimum fare ride, which obviously wouldn't be worth it. So you don't know how far they're going. And Technically, so Uber actually has a policy now that says they will not deactivate you for ignoring requests. Lyft doesn't have the same policy, but I haven't heard of them deactivating drivers for ignoring those requests. They may still send you emails and text messages that say things like, we call them nastygrams, but that's our nickname for them. They may say things like, hey, they kind of guilt trip you. Hey, we notice that your acceptance rate is a lot lower than other drivers in your area. We want you to be a valued partner, something like that, and basically encouraging you to go and do those trips. But personally, my advice is to not do those, right? Because if you're getting requests that are 20 to 30 minutes away, that's just too damn far, and you're probably going to spend more on gas and wear and tear on your car than you're going to make in the long run. Now, on Uber, they've got this cool feature now that pays you for those long pickups, right? So after a certain point, you start getting paid for mileage and time. So I think it's definitely worth it there. And like I said earlier in the stream, I wouldn't be surprised if Lyft actually came out with the same feature very soon, because I know that's a big pain point for drivers, and you can definitely, take advantage of, hopefully we'll be able to take advantage of that in the future. So Arturo says, this is a good question. Arturo says, Uber will pay when a passenger vomits in your car, but not when a passenger damages your car. What should the driver do if passenger damages your car and my insurance deductible is too high? So you guys may have seen this video on my YouTube channel, and it's called What to Do When a Passenger Poops in Your Car. And this is kind of a funny topic, but at the same time, it also has happened to multiple drivers. And it wasn't like someone got in the car and pooped. It was like, I think it was an adult diaper situation where someone, elderly person, like their adult diaper spilled over, and then they got out and the driver didn't realize that there was basically poop in the car. And in that type of situation, you might still actually be able to request a cleaning fee from Uber, but you might need a whole new back seat. Or what if a passenger opens up the door into traffic and now your car gets damaged, right? So remember, if you're on a trip, Uber and Lyft's policy covers you, but there's a $1,000 deductible on Uber and there's a $2,500 deductible on Lyft. So in that type of situation, you might still have to pay the deductible. Even if you have rideshare insurance and they'll cover you, you might still have to pay a $500. Let's say you have a $500 or $250 deductible. So really, in the case where a passenger damages your car, you're going to want to get their information, right? Because you want to make sure that this passenger is responsible for whatever damage they cause. So think of it like an accident situation, right? If you get into an accident with another car, you're going to take down their driver's license, get their insurance and all that. If a passenger opens your car into oncoming traffic, right, or something, opens your car into a fire hydrant and damages your car, don't expect too much help from Uber and Lyft. They won't even actually give you the passenger's name and contact info for privacy reasons, but take it upon yourself, kind of understand that, hey, it's now on me to get this passenger to compensate me and to sort of work it out that way. So, these situations are pretty rare, but they do happen. And so really in any type of damage situation, you're going to kind of want to go after the passenger and make sure that they're the ones that are going to cover it. Sort of just like, imagine that you own a business, someone comes in and damages it, you might report it to the police, right? Or you might go after that passenger. It's the same thing. And that's why you guys have to understand, now as a driver, whether you like it or not, you're a business owner and you're sort of responsible for these types of situations. So Rideshare Genius says Lyft has the same acceptance rate policy as Uber. They just bury it in the contract. You retain the option to accept or decline or ignore a rider's request for services via the Lyft platform. So that's good to know. I actually didn't know that was in their policy, but it makes sense that they have the same policy as Uber. For the most part, like I said, Uber and Lyft have the exact same policy. So, I think it's probably a good bet that you can say that both are the same there. And let's see, Frank says, what about states requiring taxi registration plates when driving for Uber? So New York City is the only market in the country that requires UberX drivers to have commercial insurance and what do they call it? TLC licensing. In every other city across the country, you can sign up to drive with Uber for the most part with an eligible vehicle, pass an online background check, and get a vehicle inspection. So very simple requirements there. So I think you're probably talking about the New York market, but feel free to elaborate if you're talking about something else. Let's see. EDED says, the first text on your live chat, can you turn on the caption on here on YouTube? He's a hard of hearing driver, but been utilizing your blog, podcast. Very interesting. I'll have to figure out. I don't know if we can do subtitles on the lives, but you should be able to see the live chats, obviously. And I'll look into that. And as if you guys know, we actually do have quite a few drivers who are deaf or hard of hearing, and we actually produce transcripts of all our top YouTube videos and publish them and send them out via email over on our video training course blog at MaximumRideSharingProfits.com. So I'll leave a link in the show notes that if you guys do want to see transcripts of our YouTube videos we actually do transcripts we do 2 posts a week, every single week over on Maximum Ride Sharing Profits. So that's a good way to check that out. And you can see that. Ryan says, is it legal to stop in the bike lane and pick up and drop off your passengers? So for the most part, I don't know if it's legal or not to stop in a bike lane. I mean, I'm assuming, technically, I think double parking is illegal everywhere, right? But you really, I think SD Ute fan sort of summed it up, right? You kind of want to use common sense. I mean, really, what we're starting to see, especially in places like San Francisco, is that there are a lot of drivers who don't know what they're doing. And, when you're in a busy downtown area, the passenger wants to be dropped off right in front of the restaurant or right in front of their work or whatever it might be. But I would first and foremost say, what's safe, right? Are you going to pull over and someone now has a chance of rear-ending you? Is this like a huge busy street? Probably don't want to do it there. And then also think about what's legal, right? Because if you go and get a ticket for dropping someone off in front of a building where it's a no stopping or a no parking type zone, Uber and Lyft aren't going to cover you. You're responsible for that ticket. So I would sort of think about it that way accordingly. So if I'm on a street where there are a ton of bikers going by, I'm probably not going to double park in a bike lane. I would probably let the passenger know, hey, there are a lot of bikers on this street. Do you mind if I pull up to the corner and let you out there where it's safe? Now you've sort of put it in the passenger's kind of hands and said, you've sort of shown that you're caring about their safety and you don't want to hit a biker, right? And a passenger would have to be kind of a real, a-hole to say, no, I need to be dropped off here right at the front, right? So that's sort of how I handle those situations. And, so you really want to kind of use your best judgment, as Christian says, and, you kind of want to avoid those bus lanes and cops and things like that, because I think in certain places they will, not deactivate, they will ticket you for that. So Steve says, I have been wrongfully deactivated from Lyft without any warning. In California, my license expired. I received 90-day temporary license, but Lyft won't accept that. So we've actually got a post coming out tomorrow on the rideshareguy.com from one of our contributors, Jay, who's just deactivated from Uber for a very similar issue that we think it's actually a mistake, that Uber ran some updated background check and deactivated him for basically no reason. He's been unable to drive for Uber for a week, and he's been emailing, calling, going in person, and can't get it resolved. So we've got a blog post coming out about this situation, but in short, that's sort of another reason why you want to have Lyft as a backup. So he's been driving for Lyft all week, and luckily his earnings haven't been impacted. It just kind of sucks not being able to at least have that option for Uber. So definitely another reason, even if you primarily drive with one app, you always want to have another one as a backup, or even maybe a delivery option as a backup. And you don't want to wait until you get deactivated to sign up. You want to have that sort of proactively, sign up and get approved and figure out how things work just in case you need it, especially if you kind of depend on this income. So keep that in mind for sure. Leroy says, tax season is coming up. What should I expect from H&R Block or other institution? Can my taxes be done through e-file in a timely fashion? So we'll have a ton of tax content coming out on the blog and on the YouTube channel and things like that. So stay tuned probably around January, February. But the first things first, you'll start getting your 1099s from Uber and Lyft. And I won't get super into the taxes, but long story short, you can file yourself. You'll need to file a Schedule C in addition to your 1040. And basically, that's where you'll add up all your Uber and Lyft income, deduct all your miles, and basically file this additional thing. You can easily do it with a TurboTax, with an H&R Block, and we'll have a nice step-by-step guide. Most drivers do use online filing software, so it's definitely doable. And that's kind of what I'll say about that, because that's kind of a different topic for another day. I'm sure in our YouTube Live next month and the following month, we'll probably get super into that. So this is a good question. I want to update Rideshare 2K17OH. He's got a couple questions. Any updates on the Ford Fusion hybrid you were testing out? So over the past 3 or 4 months, you guys may have noticed I've been posting on YouTube and Facebook, and we've got a blog post coming out this week on therideshareguy.com that I actually partnered up with Ford, and I've been testing out a Ford Fusion hybrid. So basically, they gave me a Ford Fusion hybrid to test drive. Unfortunately, I don't get to keep the car, and basically they're trying, they sort of see the Ford Fusion hybrid as a car that they want drivers, Uber and Lyft drivers to sort of start consider, and I have to say that even though they are paying me to try out this car, and I've been doing videos on this series, of course, like obviously all the opinions on the car are my own, and I have been enjoying the car a lot. I have to say, this is my first hybrid that I've ever driven, and so I've really been enjoying the miles per gallon. I'm getting 42 miles per gallon, which may not be as high as other hybrids, but a lot of those other hybrids with higher MPG have, a lot smaller. I've been taking past Uber and Lyft passengers around in this Ford Fusion hybrid, and I'm getting a ton of great feedback. A guy got in the other day and said, "What kind of car is this? Is this a luxury car?" He thought it was a Tesla or something like that. I don't know. He might have just been intoxicated, but it's definitely been surprising, and it's been a very cool car to drive. So I encourage you guys to go ahead and check out my videos on the Ford Fusion hybrid if you want to learn a little bit more about that. And I think I'm going to go ahead and answer one final question here, and then do the giveaway. So make sure you stay tuned. Rideshare says, what did it say? Where do you see the rideshare business in the next 5-10 years going? So I think this is a really good question to end on, and then we'll go ahead and I'll let you know how to enter the giveaway. But basically where I see the industry going is that there's a lot of opportunity right now, right? I mean, if you guys have been driving for Uber and Lyft for any amount of time, you've probably realized that, these companies don't do a great job with drivers. There's so many things that they can improve, right? Their ratings, the Uber pool, the customer service, pay drivers more, right? There's a lot of problems, which, for me as an optimist, I'm looking at the glass half full. I see those as a lot of opportunities, right? So, for me personally, we're developing a ton of content about what the experience is like, what can be fixed, and really with the goal that, hey, we want these companies to improve the experience for drivers, because I think what we've seen in the past is that rates may have come down in the past, but it's still a very unique work opportunity for a lot of drivers. I mean, I could literally go log on and do 5 rides and cash out my money instantly, right? I can't think of another job that has that type of opportunity, but I think there still are a lot of problems that need to be fixed. And I'm not convinced that self-driving cars are going to be taking rideshare drivers' jobs anytime soon. There's going to be so much political and all this regulatory issues to deal with. So I think for the most part, really what you have to understand as a driver, there's still a lot of opportunity as a driver, but you have to go out there and kind of make it work for you, right? Do your research, do your due diligence, but at the end of the day, no one cares more about your money and nobody cares more about your business than you, right? Uber might call their drivers partners, but at the end of the day, Uber's looking out for themselves and you're looking out for yourself, which is how it should be, right? So I think that you guys that are going out there, right, try to take advantage. We talked a lot about bonuses and using Mystro, right? Take advantage of these tools, of these services, because I think that there are a lot of ways that you can do so. And so that's sort of where I see things headed in the future, right? If you're able to make this work as a driver, I think you definitely, there's a lot of opportunity, but hey, if you can't make it work or if it doesn't fit with your schedule, go try something else. So hopefully that's a good summary. And, I definitely enjoyed this YouTube Live. Let's see, what do I want to do for the giveaway today? Oh, that's right. I want to do a $50 Amazon e-gift card in honor of Christmas. And in order to enter, all you need to do is share this YouTube Live video on Facebook, Twitter, any social media, or if you don't have social media, I'm assuming you do if you're on YouTube watching this right now, but if you don't for some reason, just email it to a friend or to someone that you think would get a lot of value out of this channel and someone that you think would be helped by this information, because that's one way that you can obviously help me out. I really appreciate all the super chats that you guys gave, and I think That's really awesome, but also spreading the word costs you guys nothing. If you guys are enjoying this content and you want us to keep producing content, obviously, I don't create videos and, do all this work because, I don't want anyone to read it. I want people to watch the videos and I want people to read the content. So if you think there's anyone out there that would find value from that, go ahead, share this video with them on Facebook, social media, Twitter, Instagram, whatever, or just email it to someone if you don't have social media. Take a screenshot. Email it to me, harry@therideshareguy.com, subject line YouTube Live, and I'm going to pick one random winner for a $50 Amazon e-gift card. So hopefully you guys can go ahead and do all that and you understand all those instructions. Definitely, so feel free, like I said, recap, share on Twitter, share this video on Twitter, Facebook, take a screenshot, send it to me, harry@therideshareguy.com, subject line YouTube Live. And, we'll be back next month answering all your questions. Hope you guys all have a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. I know that I'm definitely going to be doing my wife's actually has to work a little, but so I'll be doing some driving over the holidays. But I think, definitely we've got a lot coming in 2018, so definitely stay tuned for that. And I appreciate you guys all joining this YouTube Live. And like I said, if this is your first time ever joining the YouTube Live, subscribing to the channel, I really just want to say thank you. This is awesome, and now that I guess we're at the end of 2018, we're all the way up to 23,000 subscribers on the YouTube Live. And we've got a couple different contributors doing videos now, so it's been a lot of fun. And if you guys have subscribed to this channel, you've been with us for a while, I'm also super appreciative of you. And I definitely want to keep providing value. So we'll definitely be back next month with another YouTube Live. And with that being said, don't forget to work smarter, not harder. And we'll see you guys next month. Take care. Thanks for joining.